cmpradio.net. It's the station.
Got it, Bobby.
What's up, everybody, man? It's your boy, Uncle P. If you would like to be a sponsor of cmpradio.net, man, hit us up at info, that's INFO, at cmpradio.net. It's the station.
Cultivating mature positivity. cmpradio.net.
Hi, my name is Donna, also known as Donna and Janel, CEO and founder of Parenting with a Purpose. Our strive here at the podcast is to reach every home, whether it's single moms, married, single dads, whatever it is, foster parents, whatever, just bringing the ownership and responsibility and nobility back into parenting. Get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. All parents need some help and guidance, and I'm just here to be a guide. Hey everybody, welcome back to Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janel, where I aim to bring back the beauty, nobility, and responsibility back into parenting. Thanks for joining me here every Thursday, where we are striving, aiming our kids where they should go, so that, when they get older, they should land wherever we sent them. So again, as parents, we are the bows, our children are the arrows. And they're going to end up, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, not overnight. They will end up where we send them eventually through life processes and different things that come up. Sometimes they end up faster, sometimes they end up slower. The point is, they will end up. So thanks for joining me tonight. I am here solo dolo, and tonight's topic is very interesting. There's actually multiple topics. The main topic is parenting teens. So we know that parenting, again, I'm always here to strive that parenting is not for the weak. Parenting does not come in, it's a variety, diverse, actually. Parenting is very diverse. We got different genders, age, races, what you could name it. It's almost like parenting is like the melting pot. You get it all in there, right? So that's what parenting is. And here, I'm just here just to talk about it. Tonight's topic is parenting teens. Now, y'all know parenting teens is very difficult. Parenting teens is very difficult. A lot of times, this is where we throw in the towel because the kids start to be older. Seem like they get a little bit more mouthier. A lot of different things happen in this teen group, right? This teen group. And now we're post-COVID, right? So then there's a lot has happened in this teenage group too. So tonight, parents and teens, some of the things we're going to hit tonight, we're going to talk about sex, we're going to talk about respect, we're going to talk about drugs, we're going to talk about vaping, we're going to talk about alcohol, we're even going to talk about nude pictures, where we know that sexting, texting type stuff in this modern world. Talk about school, we're going to talk about college, driving, finances, dating, and social. All this is centered around parenting teens. Having a conversation. Last week we were on the show, right? And it was a hot topic show. I call it a hot topic, a spicy debate between myself and John Pierre. And on there was a lot of questions and a lot of statements about what is going on with parenting, the state of parenting and the state of our children. We were talking about how kids are disrespectful, how parenting is not like when we were younger. There was so many different things coming up. At some point, I think I ended up telling Pierre to shut up because it was just like one of the things that he said was like our kids are our slaves and that they're supposed to do what we tell them to do. And as you know, growing up, kids were to be seen, not heard. And a lot of times they were actually not even to be seen. It was kind of shush, hush, hush, hush stuff. Do what I say, not as I do. There's a lot of what I would call dictatorship into parenting. Now, we know parenting is not truly a democracy, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be us talking at our kids, demanding certain things because we're the authority figure when we're parenting. Last week we kind of talked about the gentle parenting, intentional parenting type of parent, and that was pretty much the whole goal of us discussing parenting. And the term gentle parenting, I use the term intentional parenting, is that parenting, we really have to be intentional. Even if we didn't plan to have these children, that doesn't mean that we're supposed to live an autopilot life with these children. Like some people may live an autopilot life yourselves, but when it comes to children, we are responsible and we are entrusted to have another life, another human being who we're supposed to raise to be the best that they can be. I think all parents want their children to be the best of whatever it is. No parent sets out to, I would say, probably belittle their kids or set out to not have their children successful, whatever success means to them. I don't think that there's no parent want bad for their children. Then there are situations and circumstances that causes bad things to happen or cause us as parents to not parent to our fullest capabilities. There's a lot of hindrances and things like that, but I don't think any parent sets out to harm their children intentionally. Now, if there's other things involved, like drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, and things like that, that's different because then your mind is not being regulated to normalcy of what you should and should not do, and your thought pattern is off. There's some chemicals imbalance there, so then therefore you may think about harming your kids, you may think about doing things because you're harming yourself, right? But I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to beat the crap out of my kids. Or I don't want my kids to go to school, get an education. Or I want my kids to be on substance abuse. I don't think anybody wakes up like, wait, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at the comments, so I want to see what you guys are out there talking about because this is an open conversation. So I kind of wrote some things down so that I kind of stay on course because it's just me. Normally I have somebody I could talk to back and forth, but it's just me, and I'm going to hold it down. All right, so I wrote, it is imperative to have discussions with our children because, days long gone are the days where we just tell our children, like, for example, let's talk about sex. Yep, we're going to start uncomfortable conversations right away. Talk about sex. So we always tell our kids, or our parents told us not to have sex, right? I know growing up, I heard not to have sex so you don't get pregnant. That's the number one thing that most people say, don't have sex so you don't get pregnant. That's it. That's the consequence of sex was pregnancy. That was it. And they were always talking to the girls. They really wasn't talking too much to the boys, even though it takes the male to get the female pregnant. But that's what the thing was talking about. It was never a discussion though. It was just don't do this. And I think when we talk about this intentional parent, it should be discussion based. It should be a conversation. Like, not only go over what sex is, but what are the outcomes of having sex, right? So I have a couple things that I wrote down. Like, we talk about when you want to have a conversation with, I really think it should be preteen. I put teen, but I look at like 11, 12-year-olds who you want to start having this conversation with because there's a lot going on in that age group. So some of the consequences around sex, right? So diseases is one, right? And there's a plethora of diseases out there that you get from sex. Talk about different partners. sexuality, what partners are you thinking about choosing, or what partners you don't want to do? Like, just that whole partner, who are you choosing to even be involved in, should be a conversation. Also, kids, like, we talked about the pregnancy thing. That's one of the consequences. Talk about having consent or non-consensual sex. That should be a conversation. The difference between pornography and real life. These are when we talk about sex, we need to have these conversations with our children, not just don't go have sex. I don't want you to have sex. But what happens if you do have sex, or why I don't want you to have sex, right? I don't want you to have sex because I don't want you to have to deal with these consequences that may hinder your life or stall your life or even kill you, right? Because we talk about diseases. Now, there's a lot of medicine out here. One of the biggest diseases that we always heard about is HIV, right? So we know that HIV can turn to AIDS and people die over time. But there's other diseases out here that may not be HIV, but just as important. Like, we know that chlamydia, gonorrhea, those things are curable, right? Take antibiotics, you're cured. But there are certain things like syphilis, hepatitis, like those things that you get from having sex. Like, most people don't know, but hepatitis A you can get from anal sex, right? So that's sex. So it's just different, and that's a long life disease. Hepatitis A is not curable, syphilis not. So there's diseases out here that can halt your life or become a hindrance to your life. So I think having a discussion with our kids about sex is very important, so that we set expectations for our kids, though, and that they hear our heart and they understand and they get to ask questions. I'll never forget one of my son's teacher. He was in the 5th grade. Yep, he was going to go to middle school, and they have health class, and they talk about sex, and they talk about everything, because everything is out there. They are teaching our children in elementary school about genders and non-binary genders. There's a lot of talk. Even elementary kids are taking hormones if they want to be if you're a biological girl and you want to be a boy. They're giving you hormones if you're a biological boy and you want to be a girl, or you feel like you're more feminine and you want to be more feminine. They're giving these kids hormones. I know it's not something that I'm just making up. I see it all the time. I'm a pediatric nurse. I've seen kids be on the schedule for hormones. So that's a conversation that they're actually starting in elementary school, very young, and parents are allowing, helping their children make these decisions. But we even need to talk to our kids about that. It's because that's how bullying starts. That's how it's a lot of misinformation out there. So I think that when we talk to our kids about it, it should be an open conversation, because our kids definitely have questions about it too. So when we talk about, diseases, the consequences, and the difference, because we know that it's out there. Pornography is out there. Let's keep it real. Pornography is out there. So teaching our children, though, the difference between what's real and what's on TV. The same thing when our children watch shows, right? That, there's shows that a lot of violence is happening, or just whatever show it is. It's a show. Real Housewives of Atlanta, right? It's a show. It's not real life, right? So teaching our kids the difference between television, video, and real life is so important, and having those open conversations, because if we don't have those conversations with our kids, the world will, right? I always make the analogy is that if we don't have conversations with our kids, if we're not giving our kids what they need, if we're not clothing them with some stuff, they're going outside butt naked, and the world will clothe them, okay? They will put some clothes on them that won't fit, won't look right, may even be dirty, stinky, whatever. They will attach some things to our kids if we're not careful. So I always tell parents, and I always encourage parents, that we need to have standards in our house. We need to have expectations for our kids, and we need to be able to talk to them about those, not talking at them, but talking to them, so they know your heart and that they know what's expected of them, right? So another topic that one of the things that we're gonna talk about in this teen parenting thing is, P said something last week that was very interesting, and I agree to some extent with that. When we were talking about respect, right? Kids seem like they don't have respect for elders as they did before. You know, we can walk down the street and we would say hi, yes sir, yes ma'am to our neighbors, even always. I grew up in a Bennett home, so I could be up on Valentine Terrace and still know everybody that was down the hill from me and always respect them, right? So at some point, that respect was lost, right? So respect in the home, respect at the schools, and respect in public. There's so many times I'm walking down the street or they're walking my dog or even at the store, and I'm hearing the amount of filth that's coming out some of these children, right? And their parents are with them. I hear how they talk to their parents. I hear how their parents respond to them. And I just hear how they talk to other people. And it's like we almost lost total respect for our kids. And I said something last week, and that was a little controversial debate there when we were talking about respect, because one of the things that I just believe, and it's not just me, there's other people believe it as well, is that our children need to be respected as well, right? So if you don't respect your child and your child becomes very disrespectful to you and you're a leader, right? We're mentors, we're leaders to our children. They only do what they hear and what they see from us. So if they're not receiving respect from us, then they're gonna end up being disrespectful, and then they're out in the street disrespecting people, and then other people disrespect them as well. So I just think respect is both sides, and it's not like we're saying that our children should just how do I say it? Like, people say you earn respect. I don't think that our children have to earn our respect. They're our children. They're born by us. We're raising them. That should be something that's given, right? Respect should be given. Listen, I respect you. You're a human. You're a person. I love and care for you, so I'm going to respect you. Now, back in the day, we had no say-so. People said and did whatever they want. And then we were supposed to be quiet and just listen because of the authority figure. We see now that way don't work. And it's not like we're giving our kids too much freedom to have a conversation, but it's just hard for me to tell my child, you need to respect me and respect others even if I'm not respecting you. That's just, you wouldn't want anybody to disrespect you, because then you wouldn't respect them anymore, right? So just putting that into context of we really should be giving our kids the respect as well, so that they can understand what respect is, because everything is learned in the household. What we do to our children, believe it or not, that's going to shape them, that's going to mold them, and that's how they're going to be out in this world. So if we're responsible for our kids, I mean, it behooves us to do things that we want them to be successful with, right? So, and one of the things, I had this conversation with a dear friend of mine who has a child care center, and I've had this conversation with several people before. A lot of teachers, a lot of schools are having trouble with our kids in the respect area. It's almost like they have to go through all these behavioral changes before they can actually teach a lesson, right? So if you're yelling and screaming at your kids at home, you're fussing and fighting with your kids, which no parent should fight with their kids, but if you're fussing and screaming and calling your kids names, and by the time they go to school, that's all they're gonna know. If a teacher is trying to have a conversation with a nice, calm conversation, and the kid doesn't hear anything, because all they do is respond to yelling and screaming. Right, think about that for a second. If all I know is yelling and screaming, or hurry up or I'm gonna beat you before you move, in order to get me to move, you gotta threaten me. This is what these teachers are dealing with every day. Putting them out the class, screaming and yelling at them, and then we wonder why our children aren't up to educational standard. Is because we're spending most of the day correcting them on their behavior. having a normal conversation, a nice quiet tone conversation, doesn't even work anymore because that's not what they're receiving at home. I think that's a problem. I think that we need to go back to the homes. Parents, we need to kind of recalibrate the system and start to respect our kids and start talking to them as if they were human. If you can retrain them, kids' brains, they're moldable, they're like sponges. You can start now, and that the next couple years in school, this should be successful, where you won't be getting phone calls and say, I had to put your kid out, or I had to scream and yell at your kid, is everything okay at home? It's a problem. It really is a problem. The other thing, let's talk about vaping, right? I have it's a whole list of things I want to touch tonight, so it may seem like I'm not touching something for a very long time. I'm just pretty much putting out some information, and it requires further conversation about it, though. We can still talk about it later. Vaping. I didn't even know they were vaping in school. I didn't know they was vaping in school. So my kids was in middle school, and they came home and told me, Mom, such and such was vaping. And I was like, how do you even get vapes at this young age? Vaping's really just kind of became a thing not too long ago, probably in the last 5 to 10 years, vaping. But kids are vaping. Kids are dying at record numbers from vaping. We used to be like, stay away from drugs, stay away from cigarettes, nicotine will kill you, you know that's rat poison, right? We used to talk about that all the time. Rat poison, all this other stuff is in nicotine, this in cigarettes, right? But then nobody started talking about vaping, like, it's bad for you. You're still putting all this stuff into your body, and it's still the same rat poison, still other poisons that we're putting in our body, and kids are doing it. So having a conversation about the consequences of vaping, addiction, how lifelong choices, because people are addicted to vaping. It's not just these hard drugs anymore. These kids are addicted to vaping. So just having that open conversation about what vaping is, the cost of vaping, the lifelong consequence of vaping, and the fact that you can be addicted to it. I don't think anybody for anything, any substance abuse, touch any substance and say, I want to be addicted to this. Most people don't think that they can get addicted, right? So that's a subject that you really want to have a conversation with your kid now, because it's out there. Again, if we don't have these uncomfortable conversations with our kids, the world will have a conversation with them, and they're going to teach them the way they want them to learn. The other thing, alcohol. Talking about the expectations of what's your standard in your household about alcohol. I had a conversation with an adult before, and they were saying that they were going to allow their children to drink alcohol in their house, right? So that they can keep an eye on them, they can watch them, and then so that when they go out there, they can handle their alcohol and that they'll be fine. I had to crack my neck on that one, y'all. Crack my neck on that one. So basically what this mother was telling me is that she'd rather her children do the substance in her presence where she may be able to control it versus them going out in the street. But newsflash, if they're doing it at home, they're going to end up doing it on the street as well. And they might do it to a greater degree. So how about if you don't want your child, if you set expectations, if you don't want your child to have alcohol or even engage in any of those things, let's have an open conversation about it. So we talk about, these kids, they go to parties. What is it like if somebody offers you, what to do if somebody offers you alcohol? What to do if somebody slips something in your drink and you feel that? If you feel different, if you feel wrong, what to do? Have a safety plan. Like, say, you don't want to go to the party thinking that you don't want to let your child go to a party and thinking that they're going to have some alcohol. You're hoping that there's responsible adults there where there's no alcohol involved. However, if it does happen and kids slip things in, what to do if it happens? A safety plan. Call me right away. I'll come pick you up. Text me. Give me a code word, whatever. develop some type of safety plan so that you know that your child know they're going to be safe, and that even if they did something wrong, they can still know that they're going to be picked up and they're going to be talked to and they're going to be loved on and cared about, even though they made a bad decision. But still being available even in their bad decision is important, because a lot of times kids, they get involved in alcohol, they don't want to go home to their parents because they did something wrong, and then situations just become worse, right? That's when they may stay over at a friend's house because they became drunk. That's when a lot of rape, a lot of things, bad things happen. There's situations where kids die from alcohol intoxication, from being at someone's place and they were too drunk to go home, so they stayed. Nobody was able to help them. There was no adults around, and he died. Also, what if your friend is drunk and they're driving? What if you rode there with a friend and then they're drunk? What to do? We need a plan. We need to have this open conversation with these kids. And I think the conversation needs to be real and relevant, because things like this happen. You let them go with their friend. They're a good kid. Their friend, you don't think their friend drinks, or they haven't exposed that they drink, and then their friend drinks and they have too much. How your kid is getting home? When not to get behind the wheel with somebody who's intoxicated. I don't care if there's your friend, your family, anything. Have that open conversation. Also, the cost of drunk driving. It costs, for the first offense of drunk driving, teenager or adult, is $5,000. It costs. Most people don't think about that. Oh, it's a little alcohol, it's fine, but if you get pulled over, it's $5,000. Not even just if you get pulled over, right? If you're intoxicated and you hit someone dies, now you have a murder case. These are open conversations we need to have with our kids about consequences. Not just don't drink because I don't want you to drink. I mean, I don't want you to drink, but let me tell you what happens if you drink, okay? And if you drive, and if you ride with somebody who's drunk, and if you do things that not making the best decision for your life, these are the consequences. And then parents, listen, we have to pick up the slack in this, right? What kid is walking around with $5,000? No? Not no kids that I hang around, not no kids that I grew up with walking around with $5,000. I mean, for real. So this is why it's so important for parents to really have the conversation with these kids, because we're going to be affected by it. Not just us, the whole family's going to be affected by it, right? The next thing, let's talk about this whole social media, texting, sexting stuff that these kids, this is another conversation we really need to have open. Now, the conversations that I'm talking about, the discussions that we need to have with our kids, they are so uncomfortable. Trust me. They are so uncomfortable, but they are necessary. It is imperative for us to have these conversations. We talk about nude pictures, sending pictures to people, because what happened is we seen it everywhere. It's been part of bullying. People would use these as threats. You send it to a boy or girl or friend or something, a naked picture of yourself, then they send it to someone else and they share it and then they share it, and next thing you know, the whole school got it, right? So the consequences, the first time, it's a misdemeanor, right? It is a offense misdemeanor. The second time is a felony. We're talking about kids here. The first time a nude picture is shared, it's a misdemeanor. That's a little light, little misdemeanor, still on your record. But the second time, that's a felony. You know what a felony is? A felony will destroy your life at an early age, right? So teaching our kids, not just, oh, don't send any naked pictures to anybody. It's unladylike, it's ungentlemanlike, you shouldn't do that. It's not right, save your body. Teach that, but also teach what happens if you do this. We're talking about misdemeanors. Second time a felony? My 15-year-old now has a felony because he shared a new pic? Unacceptable. But that's a conversation we don't have. Another conversation is understanding that when you send stuff out there on social media, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is permanent. This stuff cannot be deleted. You may delete it off your profile. You may delete it off your page. You may delete it. You may even shut your whole Snapchat down. But guess what? It's still out there. It is still out there. It is permanent. I mean, they're pulling stuff up from people 10, 20 years ago. Trump posted something one time. 20 years ago, they pulled up from Trump saying some inappropriate stuff. People who are running for council people, city government, all these people who said something nasty, negative, or not indicative of a positive character, they pull that stuff up 20, 30 years ago. Oh, remember when you was 15, you said this? Yeah, it's out there. Teaching them that. Also, again, when we talk about if you're sending, this is a part of bullying too, extortion. Because if somebody has a picture of your child nude or whatever, they can extort them. They can extort you. Like, you don't want that out on social media. You don't want that out anywhere. They can start asking for money, bullying your kid, and you're wondering why you're giving your kid money, and every time I turn around, the kid doesn't have the money. It's because they're up there paying somebody not to show their nude pic. It happens. It's real. I'm not making this stuff up. This is real stuff. Also, talking about it as being self-respect. Like, you want to respect yourself. You don't want to expose yourself out there like that. And then also, believe it or not, it can hinder your future job prospects. Yeah, I know. It's like, why are we talking about that at 15, 16, 17 years old? I just said they go way back. 10, 15 years ago, they go back, they find your information and said, oh, your character's not right because you post this A, B, and C. There's so many people who are losing jobs or not getting jobs based on their social media, based on what they've done years ago. It's real. I'm telling you, it's out there. So, but these are conversations we need to have with our kids. Let's have these conversations. All right, another conversation. I think most families kind of have this, I don't know if it's a real conversation or discussion, or is it, I'm telling you what you're going to do. When we talk about school, like how important is school for your family? Again, we're setting expectations, right? And we're having a conversation. How important is school? What's the reason why, what is the reasoning for you going to school, right? What are lessons being learned in school? Because most kids think they know everything and they don't need nothing. I'm just saying. And what does your family expect from the students, your kids? What do you expect from your kids, right? And when I'm talking about school, I'm talking about middle school, grade school, middle school, high school. I'm not talking about college yet. I'm talking about just K through 12. What are the expectations for your kids? Because kids have to go to school, right? It's a law. Most people don't realize, but it's actually illegal to keep your child home from school under the 12th grade. Once high school, they can do kind of whatever they want, but K through 12, it is illegal to keep your kid at home. They have truancy. You will get a fine. You will go to jail for not sending your kids to school, right? So what is the expectation in our family about education? And not just send them because you're scared you're going to get in trouble, but what are we really talking about here? What is the purpose of school? What's going on? Because, again, certain things are just certain standards and expectations for our kids to know. Like, we know that you have to go to school from K to 12. That's a given. What kind of school do you want to go to? What do you want to learn? What's going, all these conversations it's important in our children. And then we go into colleges. Now, that's kind of a heavy, matter of fact, we were just talking about this last week with Pete when he was like, your job is to go to school, go to school, right? Go to college, and after you finish college, then you have something to say. I'm just clowning him because that debate was very heavy. But most parents don't realize, but the reason why you need to have this conversation early, because you really should start looking at colleges in 8th grade. Not wait till they become high school students or seniors. There's a lot of colleges out there, right? You're not going to be able to look at that in 1 year. So really start thinking about what do you want to be, some things that, and you can want to be in 8th grade, you can want to be multiple things, right? But start having that conversation about college. If that's what the goal and the expectation of the family, and that's what the child wants to do, start looking at that early, 8th grade. They have college tours starting that early, just so they can see and they can experience different things, not by just what we say, but allow them to experience some things. And the other conversation is explore what a non-college job look like. So if you don't go to college, right? Not everybody's going to go to college. One, not everybody can afford to go to college. I still got a large college bill. Two, if they struggle in high school, they may even struggle in college because they may not be able to sit there through those lectures, right? So what does it look like? What does after post-high school look like? Technical school, maybe start their own business, maybe go to college. Having a conversation before they graduate so that you know what you're aiming for, right? What your family's aiming for, and being supportive of your kid. If your kid don't want to go to college, they don't want to go to college. They're going to tell you why, and we have to respect that, right? Because one, are you footing the bill? Two, do you want them to go into debt? Like there's real good reasons why some kids just don't want to go to college. They don't want to sit in school. They done sit in school all this time, and they just don't want to do it. Even though the college life is definitely different than high school, middle school, it's totally different. But then some kids just don't have it in them to sit there. But at least have that courageous conversation, that be open-minded when you have that conversation. Another thing is, it's like helping when our kids who are going to college, helping them write down their expenses, their income and expenses, how this college is going to pay for. Explore scholarships. This is one of the reasons why it's important to start very early, because if the goal is to go to college and this is what the child wants, there's so many scholarships out there starting at 8th grade that you can start applying for, writing essays, do all these different type of things so that college can be paid for, right? So that's a discussion that, sometimes we say, I know I did this with my daughter, my oldest daughter, who's 24 now. I remember I'm such an advocate for education, and I couldn't see past not going to college. I couldn't see past not going to college. I was going to college. I couldn't see past. And the crazy thing is that when I graduated, I went to a technical school. I became a LPN. Like first a medical assistant and then an LPN. But I went to a technical school, and I was saying to myself, how am I forcing my daughter to go to college when I went to a technical school and I made pretty decent money? I just wanted more, so that's why I went back to college. I went into college. But sometimes we put so much pressure on our kids to do what we want them to do, or do what we didn't do, so that they can make mommy or daddy proud. Our children's gonna make us proud regardless of what they do. They are our children, right? So don't force something down there. Don't make your kids live your life that you wanted to live. And a lot of times we do that with college. We force them to go to college because maybe they're the first generation that's actually going to college and stuff like that. But if the child doesn't want to do it, that's not what they want to do. Maybe technical school is for them. Maybe they want to pick up a trade. Maybe they want to do HVAC. That's technical school. That's great money. That's a career, right? The next thing we're going to talk about, driving. Driving, because kids are out here driving. They have driver's ed in school. 16 years old, you can get your driver's license, right? So we have to talk about the expectations in driving. Not, you don't get in nobody's car. Don't get in none of your friend's car because I don't know how they drive. No, let's talk about friend's car. Let's talk about texting while you're driving. Let's talking about being on the phone while you're driving. Let's talk about the loud music while you're driving, right? Let's talking about what happens if the car breaks down while you're driving. Let's talk about seat belts. Let's talk about safety, right? I think just saying to our kids, don't drink and drive, don't do this and don't do that. If we keep coming up with all these don'ts, the kid's gonna do, okay? So if we have an open conversation about, listen, it's not safe texting. I know when I was driving, I'll be texting sometimes, and my kids, oh my God, Mom, you're texting. Mom, you're not supposed to be on the phone. And sometimes I'll be like, I am the mother, so just be quiet. But then I think about it and say, listen, I am setting the example. I'm telling them what not to do because A, B, and C. They're just looking out for me too. And they're teenagers now, so they're like, Mom, don't do that. But we have to remember, and that's not them being disrespectful. See, sometimes we misconstrue that. Them telling me it's not safe texting, it's not safe talking on the phone, driving, that's not them being in my business, and that's not them being disrespectful. They are basically telling me what I tell them. Mom, that's not the safest thing to do. There's consequences behind you texting. There's consequences behind you on the phone. There's consequences of you eating and drinking while you're driving. There's consequences. So we're teaching them consequences, so why not be open-minded when they give it back to us? It's not disrespectful. We say everything is disrespectful. If a kid say boo to us, it's disrespectful. No. Another conversation we can talk about is finances. Having an open conversation about finances. Teaching your kids how to budget. Even talking about credit at an early age. Credit cards, investing, talking about taxes. I know I have conversations with my kids all the time because they think that they can make a certain amount of money, live in a certain way, place, and can't afford none of that. So I think it's hilarious what kids think. So one of the things that I start doing now that they're older is bringing them in on my finances. It's not, I don't care they know how much I make. I don't care they know how much is in my bank account. You ain't gonna get it if I don't give it to you. So, but just so they see, like, start to learn how to budget. Like, what are these bills? Because I know when my mom used to be like, turn the lights out. And I didn't understand why they wanted the lights out, why, talk about the water dripping, all that stuff. I just was like, it's lights. If you want lights, have it. About the air conditioner, about the heat, all that stuff they used to complain about. Now that I'm adult, I'm like, why are these lights on? You in this room. Why are these lights on in that room? Oh no, you left my lights on all night. Why would you do that? So teaching them early, because nobody taught me why it's important for lights to go out. Why it's important. Nobody taught me when I was young about budgeting, finances. I know nothing about that. So I think it's important to have these conversations and discussions with our kids, because remember, we are training our kids so that when they leave, that they'll be set, they'll be clothed, they'll be ready to take care of their responsibilities, they'll be set. They won't have to learn out there how to do it. So I think teaching them budgeting is so important. Teaching them about, okay, you want a car, you got your license, you want a car. Teaching them about the maintenance on that car, the gas on that car. Teaching them about purchasing a home. Who says you have to be 30 to purchase your first home? No. You can really purchase it after 18. Once you're 18, you can purchase your own home. Teach them how to do that. Teach them how to invest in property. Teach them how to invest in their life and themselves. Not just wait until the world says, hey, this is what you could do now. No, you do the research. You teach them. You have that conversations with them, right? I think one of the things that I wish somebody really had that conversation when I was younger is about home, like home care, how to keep up a home, how to purchase a home, how to maintain a home, right? Having those conversations, that's when we come into those chores, right? When we talking to our kids, oh, your chore is the living room, your chore is the bedroom, I need you to clean the bathrooms. Having those conversations of why we really need for them to do it, that's that intentional parenting I'm talking about right there. Don't do it because I just need my house clean, but I'm also teaching you so that when you get older and you have your own house, you know how to maintain it. You know how to pick up after yourself. You know how to take care of your house. You know how to budget for your house. You know how to do things that you don't have to wait till you're 30 or 40 to figure it out. If we close them now, again, our job is for our children to be successful. What tools do we need to give them to be successful? Because you can't be successful without tools, right? As parents, we have the tools. And if we don't, we go find those tools so that we can help them. If you're not great with your finances, listen, don't teach your kids finances if you're not great with them. Get somebody else to do it. Get help. If y'all need somebody to teach with finances, I know somebody who does financial teaching. Reach out. If you need help with your own finances, reach out, because I think it's so important that we start to have these conversations with our kids about finances, dating. That's one of the things that I have a conversation with my kids about all the time. When they're younger, they was like, I think the girls were maybe about 10 or 11. Well, when can we start dating? And we have this joke going around because the girls, you know, their father is deceased. Their biological mom and father are deceased. And I remember their dad telling them, you can't date nobody till you get married. And so the kids will always say, my dad said I can't date nobody till I get married. And I was like, well, before you wait, it's just gonna be an arranged marriage, or you're gonna get to know the person first? So we have this running joke about you can't date till you get married. But in reality, I told, you know, set a limit, whatever age you and your children decide, set that limit, set a requirement, set a limit about dating. Talk about what a good relation, what a healthy relationship looks like, and what an unhealthy relationship look like. This is I think this is a little shaky, a little rocky, because it's kind of hard if the parents are in a unhealthy relationship, and then you try and teach your kids it's very difficult to teach something that you're in. So talk about what's healthy, what's unhealthy. What it looks like. What does a healthy relationship look like? What does a bad relationship look like? How to get out of a relationship that's not fulfilling to you, or that is bad for you. Because sometimes kids are so afraid to have a conversation with their parents about just anything. If they start dating somebody and that person treating them like crap, they sometimes are afraid because, one, they don't want to hear, I told you so. I told you he was no good. I told you she was no good. Like, that whole I told you will get our kids not coming to us. So just be open for these conversations and come up with a plan. I think talking about it really helps people understand their role and what they can and cannot do. Also, again, talking about how to leave a relationship that's not fulfilling. Talk about how to set boundaries and what does control look like. Believe it or not, a lot of teens are in controlling relationships. They are in, oh my God, I wish I pulled up the stats to tell y'all that there's a lot of teens are dealing with depression and stuff because they're in controlling relationships. And a lot of times the reason why they're in controlling relationships is because, one, they see their parents in those relationships. Two, they're afraid to talk to their parents. Three, the person who's being controlling got that from their parents and thought that this is how you're supposed to keep a person. So there's so many reasons why these kids are in these unhealthy relationships, but teach them what is control. Teach them. Also, again, setting boundaries. What do things look like? I think not just telling our kids stuff, but teaching them and showing them what it looks like is so important. And the last thing I want to talk about is, we kind of tapped in on it a little bit about the difference between bullying and social conflict. Like, you can agree to disagree with somebody, but and it's okay not to agree with somebody. I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with P half the time. Did y'all see me on here with P? We have a healthy debate. Some of the things he say, I agree with. Some things I just can't swallow. Like, I can't swallow kids being slaves. It just don't work for me, right? But that's his opinion, right? Because that's kind of how he grew up. But allowing kids to understand the difference between bullying and just a conflict. It's okay for us to disagree. It's okay for us to actually have conflicting things because we have different personalities. But bullying comes when somebody's forcing something on you. And there's a difference. Also, what's the best way to handle the conflict? Talk to kids about anger issues. Again, this is one of those things that sometimes if we see in our household, this is kind of what we do. If mama and daddy snaps out when something goes wrong, you're going to snap out when something goes wrong. So a lot of times this stuff is learned behavior, and we really have to live by example. Also, teaching kids proper problem-solving skills. again, it's very difficult to teach something that you're not practicing yourself, right? So I'm not going to be oblivious or naive to the fact that a lot of our households don't know how to do this for themselves, so it's very difficult for them to do for their children. But what I'm asking us to do is think about, let's reevaluate our own households, reevaluate ourselves, do a self-examination and say, okay, am I the best me possible for my children? Am I doing the right thing so that when I go to teach them, that they see this example and that they go forward? And not just the example because you're here in my household, but when you walk away from me, is that instilled in you? Are you going to be able to be functional in this society? Are you going to be able to have a healthy mind in this society? Because again, we know this society, there's so many things that's going on, right? And again, if your kids are out here naked, the world will close them. And they're going to close them with whatever they see fit. So our jobs as parents, my job here at Parenting with a Purpose is to bring back the beauty, the responsibility in parenting, the nobility and the beauty. Parenting is beautiful. Although we have all these things that we need to do, but when we do it right and we do it intentional, we'll see the effects of it later. We'll see the fruit from it later. You don't plant a seed today and you have fruit tomorrow. I mean, unless you GMO and all this other stuff, but you don't really plant a fruit today and you see the fruit, you don't plant the seed and you see the fruit tomorrow. So our job is to keep getting in there, keep plowing the field, keep working on our children, keep molding and shaping them so they can be the best them as possible. Again, if any parents are out there, any of these topics that I just listed, and that you need help with your children or even need help for yourself to try to bring this thing together, so we can be healthy adults and then we can have healthy children, reach out to us, Parents of Their Purpose. Follow me on Facebook at Donna Janel. You can also email me parenting, wap@gmail.com, and just share your stories, inboxes, hit me with any questions or any comments that you really think that will be beneficial for other parents, or if you have questions about just different things. We're here to help. We're here to build a community. We're here to raise up successful heroes we're here to parent on purpose with a purpose. So reach out to us. Thank you for joining tonight at Parenting with a Purpose with Donna Janel. Join me every week Thursday at 7 p.m. with more engaging conversations. And again, I am your host, Donna Janel. Have a great night.